somebody at work buys a flat, and suddenly you're the only one at the table still renting. You say congratulations, you mean it, and then you go quiet for a second because a familiar little voice starts up. Throwing money away, dead money. Rent is just paying someone else's mortgage. You have heard those phrases so many times, they feel like laws of physics. Here is the thing. In 2026, for the first time in years, the actual numbers say that voice might be wrong, and the people repeating it mostly have not checked. Start with the headline figure because it is genuinely new and it comes from the most mainstream source imaginable, not some contrarian blog. According to Rightmove's latest data, the average advertised rent across Great Britain is £1,547 a month. The average new mortgage payment on the average asking price of £373,971 with a 20% deposit over 30 years is £1,670. Renting is now £123 a month cheaper than buying, the first time it has been the cheaper option since June 2025. And that flip did not happen because rents fell because they did not. It happened because mortgage rates climbed, with the average 2-year fix jumping from 4.24% in February to 5.35% by April, quietly repricing the entire case for buying in a matter of weeks for every new buyer in the country at once. If you're renting and quietly worried you're falling behind everyone who bought, subscribe. I make this simple every day, one number at a time. Now, the gap is not the same everywhere, and this is where it gets interesting. In London, renting is currently around £362 a month cheaper than buying the equivalent property. In the southeast, £363. In Westminster, the gap reaches a barely believable £1,290 a month in the renter's favour. Go the other way up the map and the picture reverses completely. In Scotland, a typical mortgage payment is still £141 cheaper than renting. In the northeast, £45 cheaper. Those are the only two regions in Britain where buying still wins on monthly cost. Everywhere else, right now, the renter has the lower bill. But monthly cost is only the start because the phrase throwing money away hides everything that homeowners pay that renters simply never see. Buying comes with £5,000 to £15,000 of upfront costs on top of the deposit. Solicitors, surveys, mortgage fees, removals. Then, ownership itself starts billing you. Maintenance runs at roughly 1% of the property's value every single year. A boiler is £2,000 to £4,000. A roof is £5,000 to £10,000. Redecoration every 5 to 7 years. Buildings insurance, service charges if it is a flat. And when you eventually sell, roughly 3% disappears again in agent and legal fees. None of that builds equity. All of it is money a renter keeps, and almost none of it appears in the mental maths people do when they call your rent dead money. And notice what a renter's month actually looks like against all of that. The boiler breaks, and it is a phone call to the landlord, not a £3,000 hole in your savings. The roof leaks, not your problem. The service charge rises, not your letter. The renter's housing cost is a single known number, capped by a contract, while the owner's is a base payment plus a rolling lottery of 4-figure surprises that always seem to arrive in the same month the car fails its MOT. Then there is the deposit itself, and this is the argument almost nobody makes out loud. Say you have £50,000 saved, put it into a house, and it is locked inside the walls, growing only as fast as the property market. UK house prices grew roughly 3.2 to 3.5% a year between 2010 and 2023, and the latest ONS figure has them rising just 1.2% in the past year to around £268,000 on average. Meanwhile, rents are rising at 3.4% a year, the joint lowest rate since 2022, and cooling. A renter who keeps that £50,000 invested in a simple global index fund at the long-run 7% average is earning roughly £3,500 a year on money a buyer has sealed into bricks, growing at a fraction of that. Renting with the deposit invested is not throwing money away. It is choosing a different asset, and in 2026, on the raw numbers, arguably the better performing one. Here is the number that ties it all together, the break-even point. Because of those upfront costs, Buying only overtakes renting after you have stayed put long enough to spread them out. The conventional rule was 5 to 7 years. At 2026 mortgage rates, analysts now put it at 7 to 10 years for the average UK property and 7 to 9 in London. Think honestly about your next 7 years. A job move, a relationship change, a growing family, a city you're not sure about, an industry that might relocate you. If there is a realistic chance you would need to sell inside that window, buying does not just fail to beat renting. It can actively lose you money because you exit before the equity has outrun the entry and exit costs, and every one of those fees gets paid whether the move was your idea or not. Renters make the same move with a month's notice and a deposit refund. That flexibility is not a consolation prize. In a working life where the average person changes jobs more often than any generation before them, it is a financial asset with a real, calculable value that never appears on any comparison spreadsheet. Now, the honest other side, because this channel does not sell fairy tales and the case for buying has not vanished. Around 40% of UK homes, mostly in the north, are still cheaper to buy than rent from day one. Every mortgage payment does build equity a renter never sees, and in the long run, that forced saving is exactly how most ordinary British wealth got built. Homeowners hold roughly 10 times the net worth of renters. A mortgage also fixes your biggest cost while rent can keep rising, and no landlord can ever ask a homeowner to leave. If you are settled, staying 7+ years, and buying in a region where the sums already work, buying remains a genuinely strong decision in 2026. But that is precisely the point. It is a decision with conditions attached, not a moral law. The 2026 numbers say renting wins on monthly cost in most of Britain, wins on flexibility everywhere, and can even win on wealth building if and only if the money you are not spending on ownership actually gets invested rather than absorbed into lifestyle. That last clause is where most renters lose the argument in real life. The renter who invests the difference is making a sophisticated financial choice. The renter who spends the difference is simply renting. So if you are renting in 2026, here is the practical version. Stop apologizing for it at dinner tables, because in most of the country, you currently have the cheaper monthly bill backed by Rightmove's own data. Run your own break-even honestly. If the next 7 years are uncertain, your flexibility has real financial value, not just emotional value. And give yourself one rule that settles the whole debate in your favour. Every month, the gap between your rent and what ownership would truly cost you goes into investments automatically, the day after payday. Do that, and the little voice at the table loses its best line. You are not throwing money away. You are building wealth in a different wrapper, and this year, the numbers are finally on your side. If you learned something from this video, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.